Welcome in to another edition of Region Roundup, and I should say this is the last edition of 2020. I'm James Boyd here with Mike Clark. Mike, we've made it through the unimaginable, at the start of this thing.
I don't know, man. This has been a year, hasn't it? When you think back to March, and we did not know what we were getting into. And we've said it, on this podcast. It's been a running theme, obviously, and we can't not keep talking about it for sure. It's been an amazing year in so many ways, and a lot of them bad, unfortunately. We first of all, I want to say thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone for reading. Thanks to everyone for supporting local journalism. It is so important right now because there's some big stories out there. And I'm going to tease this a little bit. We're recording this on Thursday, so this will be going up a little bit later. But James has some really cool stories coming up in the next 3-4 days. So please keep an eye on his social media, the Times social media, NWI Sports, NWI Preps. Some really cool stories coming up. And that's it. No spoiler alert, because no spoilers coming, but those are going to be some really cool stories. So anyway, that being said, now that I've got your attention, hopefully, it's football award season, and the three people that you wrote about, I thought all were incredibly deserving. We have the Offensive Player of the Year, JoJo Johnson of Barrowville, the Defensive Player of the Year, Bobby Babcock of Hobart, and the Coach of the Year, Rick Good from Calumet. And just a few of my thoughts, kind of from the sidelines, I guess, so to speak. JoJo Johnson, we talked about him. It's like I can't recall a kid whose recruiting has taken off like his has, going from being committed to Northern Illinois, committing to Cincinnati, which, wound up being a top 15 team, I think, this year. Then decommitting from the Bearcats to commit to Notre Dame, which doesn't happen a lot around here. But like you said, he took some tremendous strides. We talked about this a little bit last year. He just made some tremendous strides as a player, moving up from playing at Morton to playing at Maryville, playing some of the top teams in the state and looking really good. Bobby Babcock, just a personification of what it means to be a Hobart football player, I would say. Just a real hard-nosed defensive guy, which Coach Don Howe would have been so proud of if he were still around. And there's a few coaches, from the Howell era who are still around. I know Tom Kerr, Donnie Rogers are still around, and among others. And and then Rick Good, what a tremendous job to hold this program together. It looked like they were not going to have a season. They knew that they had a great group of players, and he kept them believing, and they came back to play after being sidelined like many other teams at the beginning of the year. Won a sectional championship, which has been kind of the holy grail of that program forever. So three really deserving people, I thought.
Yeah, it was the Offensive Player of the Year with JoJo Johnson was a pretty easy choice. He was the clear-cut best all-around player, in my opinion, in the region. And obviously, to go to Notre Dame, you have to be pretty darn good, not only in the region but in the country. And then for Rick Good, that was a pretty easy choice as well. First football sectional title in program history. They only played a handful of regular season games. They lost more than half of the regular season due to COVID-19. At one point in the state tournament, they were the of all the teams that were left. At one point, they had played the least amount of games, and they knocked off a Hanover Central team that had played every week to win the sectional championship. So that was an awesome story to write as well. Touched on it in previous story. I didn't do it as much so in this Coach of the Year story, but some of the conversations I had with Coach Good just throughout the year and throughout the time I've known him is like he's kind of, bet on the scrappy kids, and Gary. And, Calumet's not like West Side. It's not, Hammond. It's not, one of these, I guess, higher level schools with like a big, history and tradition in the Hammond, even East Chicago, in those areas with honestly predominantly black, athletes. But he was saying, as the Mount Carmel grad, football is kind of what brought him, to Calumet, and what made it possible for him to kind of bridge that gap between his reality and his players' reality and the things they go through. And, it was cool to kind of see a guy who was really invested in them as people help them accomplish something on the field, which, some might not seem like a big deal, but to those players, man, they were really hurt when they were out and couldn't play. So to come back and to not only win a sectional championship, to win it in dominating fashion, they won 38-21. That was pretty cool, and obviously a no-brainer in my eyes as to who the Coach of the Year was. And that's no disrespect to anybody else in the region because there are a lot of great coaches. And then I will say for Defensive Player of the Year, that was a little tougher, Mike. Like, it came down. I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly, but I guess, shout out to those who listen to the pod. But the three it came down to were Bobby Babcock from Hobart, Cooper Jones from Valpo, and Drake Bowen from Andran. And all three had phenomenal individual seasons. All three had teams that did really well. Bobby and Cooper were even named Mr. Football at their positions, linebacker and defensive lineman respectively. And then, only reason Drake probably didn't get consideration is just because he wasn't a senior. He's only a sophomore. But, I mean, all three of those three guys, I was really thinking, like, I only been in a short time, but those three guys had absolutely dominant seasons. And it was kind of crazy to look at their stats side by side. And at the end of the day, I think what put Bobby over the edge was getting to the state championship, an unbelievable 36 tackles for losses. And then also there was a stretch in like the semi-state game with Logansport where he had about 4 or 5 plays where he just completely like changed momentum of the game. I believe he had like a couple sacks and maybe like a blocked punt or something like that. It was just where he truly imposed his will. Not saying the others didn't, but I mean, I feel like if you chose any of those three, you probably could have, made an argument. But obviously we went with Bobby, and I don't think I was wrong or our staff was wrong in any way.
Yeah, 36 tackles for loss. That's a pretty remarkable number.
Mike, when I saw it, I'm thinking, like, is this a typo? Like, what? Like, that's unheard of. And again, Cooper's got Dylan Dingman on the other end of the defensive line, getting some attention. Bobby was their marquee guy. And obviously they had a really great defense, but he's the only, Division I interior defensive guy that they had. And he's still absolutely dominant. I mean, he had a forced fumble in the state championship. Granted, they got lost and it was lopsided, but he still forced a fumble in true Bobby Babcock fashion, in the last game of the year. So that was nuts. And it was a great year overall, I believe, for football, just because, like you said at the beginning of the pod, I did not envision us even making it through a full season. And then we ended up having a team down at state for the second year in a row. And, when all area came out, I was pretty excited about it just to kind of cap off the year. People were obviously telling me I was absolutely right or absolutely wrong. And Mike, I took the high road this time. I did not respond as I normally would because honestly, I've been working a lot trying to get, like you said, some of these really cool stories I have up my sleeve out. But, I was like, you know what? I do this every year whenever this comes out. And I'm sure it'll be the same thing with basketball. All area comes out for girls and boys. There's always like, I get messages like, wait, this isn't just based off stats. My stats are better, or this kid's stats are better. And I'm like, if it was that easy, like, all area would take me 10 minutes to do, but Mike, we're laughing, but, I think it's pretty funny when people say that, because then, you open a can of worms and it's like, okay, well, JoJo had 14 touchdowns from Maryville. Is he not the best offensive player in the area? So that's where it kind of comes in. I know it gets a little dicier when you move further down into like second team and honorable mention and things like that. I got players that were in, looking through all conference lists, all state. I think people don't realize how thoroughly I take the process and our staff does. Like, I sent out a survey to every coach in the region, asking them for their nominations, asking them not only for, for their players, but also who are some of the players you faced that caught your attention, that you think, deserve recognition and things like that, which is why you kind of get like offensive linemen and things like that. There's no stats on offensive linemen, so you have to ask a bunch of coaches what they think and things like that. But overall, I'm happy with the outcome. Glad that it's over, honestly, because all areas are always something that I enjoy it when it's out, but man, when you're doing it, it just takes so much time to do it. I believe justice and not just, like some people, I guess, assume I do, go based off just stats.
Yeah, and I've done some all area teams in the past, and I'm totally there with you. But the one thing about stats, there's two things about stats. Number one, at the high school level, some of them are a little, I don't know.
Generous.
I don't think. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be kind here. There's not like a set standard. And you look at some of the stats and you wonder, I don't know about those. But I mean, the other thing is that, in cases like JoJo and Cooper Jones, I mean, Cooper Jones, teams will run away from him. I mean, it's hard to get stats when you're Cooper Jones and you're getting double teamed, and teams are scheming to stay away from you. But that's, so there's not really a stat for affecting the game when you're a D lineman necessarily. And I mean, as far as JoJo is concerned, they had a lot of pretty good offensive players on that team, and
they were loaded.
Maryville is not going to force something that's not there for JoJo. If there's somebody else who's wide open, what are you going to do? You're going to throw to the other guy. And the fact that JoJo was still able to do some crazy things, with the attention he was getting from, other defenses. And obviously, I know he was in special teams too. They used him there too. And I remember seeing some crazy plays on Twitter and stuff too, where he would, juke people out of their shoes, basically. Stats are not everything. It's the eye test in a lot of cases. I would tell the folks who are listening, James saw a lot of football, and you saw, these players usually against other good players, and that gave you the ability to kind of gauge them. And again, the fact that Bobby and Cooper were Mr. Football at their positions, says something too. Obviously, but the coaches, from around the state paid attention to that as well. So, moving on to some big news on Christmas Day, no less. Christopher Mattis from Lowell committing to Appalachian State, and one of the things that I don't know if was it you or somebody else who posted like this rapid fire dunk reel on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, I retweeted that, but yes. Oh, my goodness.
Christopher just attacking the rim, which I know you like. And we all like that. It's like, and it also got me thinking about Tyson Chavez, too. I was wondering if we're going to get an update on his dunking exploits as well this year. So, looks like, Lowell could be Dunk City just between the two of them. Because we had some fun with that last year. Tyson being 5'9" or whatever, and dunking. That was kind of a cool thing to see. And Christopher is obviously a guy who's almost a foot taller and very capable of putting down some highlight reel ones too. So interesting to see him, pick Appalachian State. It sounds like a good fit for him.
Yeah, I joked with him. I was like, man, you got me working on the holiday. But it was cool. I mean, commitment stories are usually pretty cookie cutter in a sense. You ask them why they chose them, what stuck out. But I think the cool thing about it was he did a really cool video. For those of you who haven't checked it out, You can search his name on Instagram, Christopher Mantis, or go to his Twitter page. He's got a nice video out, basically detailing his decision, his journey, and it's a cool way to do it. I've seen videos from a bunch of kids, and it was right on par with some of the better ones I've seen. Similar to like the Io Dosumu returning to Illinois video he put out. Shout out my Illini. But yeah, it was fun to talk to him on Christmas. Mainly because, he's a really, really, really down to earth kid, comes from a very tight knit family. So it made sense that he would, in particular, would commit on Christmas because, his older brother was back home from college. Stepdad was there as well. And they all had on their Appalachian State gear. And, it was cool. I joke with him that, now that he may work on Christmas, he got to work a little harder in the gym, but I have no, issues with that. I don't think he'll cheat the grind. But yeah, I mean, he's a heck of a player. I think he's on pace to possibly be an Indiana All-Star. He's an Indiana Junior All-Star last year. This year he's putting up, off the top of my head, I think it's like 29 and 10. He put up a career high 48 points, which is too shy of like the program record at Lowell. So he's a stud, and by all means, I mean, I had no idea. I will say I was shocked that he chose Appalachian State. I don't know where I really thought he would go. I know he had offers in the past from Drake, Valpo, Ball State, Incarnate Word, and others. But, App State's kind of far. So I was kind of shocked to see him go that far. But he was telling me, a little teaser from the story, that when he went, the town of Boone really treated him really, really well when he was there. Even though he couldn't have like an official visit due to COVID-19 stuff, they still found unique ways to basically host him, and his family. So that was awesome. And again, I mean, his mom was telling me, thank you for working on Christmas. But commitment stories are pretty easy. They don't take too long. And I'm always excited to write them just because those kids will never know truly what it means to be in debt for college, because I'm living it right now. And, I'm doing well for myself. No complaints. But, I mean, no debt. I just tell them, hey, you already won, and just keep winning.
Yeah. As those of you who follow James on social media know, he got a little bit of unexpected expense the other day. After coming out from a long day of hoops coverage at the Lake Central Girls Tournament, he came out to a flat tire. So, yeah, it's like another thing to fit into the budget is, and you think about, let me say something here off on a small tangent. It's like what I was saying before about how James saw a lot of football, which makes him eminently qualified to pick the all-area team. He's seen a lot of basketball. He's seen a lot of baseball. He saw Chesterton boys soccer this year, win the state championship. Folks, and I know that, we see a lot of chatter. I guess I'll put it that way, on social media about this, that, or the other thing. But one thing I can guarantee you is that James is out in the community, even in this year, where it's harder to do. And he's seeing games. I mean, he's talking to kids, he's talking to coaches, he's talking to parents. Folks, the opinions that you get, expressed in who winds up making all area, who winds up being in the top 10 in our various rankings. This is not James just sitting at home and guessing. This is James getting out there and seeing all these athletes and teams in person. So, you can disagree, and we appreciate, friendly disagreements, but everything that we do is based on observation and facts. So,
and also,
I'll just put that out there. So
I appreciate it, Mike. And one thing I also throw out there too is I will admit that, some of the all-area selections may have been swayed. Not even may have been. They were probably swayed due to COVID-19. If a team was only able to play a handful of games as opposed to a team that may have played a full season, those things unfortunately factor in. Is it fair? No, but that's the reality of, the year we're in. So I'm hoping that, that doesn't factor in as much, but it definitely was a factor when I'm looking at certain players and certain teams. And I mean, for crying out loud, Maryville received received a couple of Division I players or Division I caliber players because Morton shut down. So, I mean, I'm not blaming Morton. I'm not blaming Maryville. But again, like, was it, teams look at, that's unfair. It's not, but that's just the reality of what we had to deal with in a unique year. And, it's not like, I think people kind of get confused. Like, it's not all NBA where they're all playing in one league on one level. You got different classes, different schedules. And again, this year, different teams playing a different amount of games. And then also, even just getting, I guess, more into the teeth of things, yes, you can tell me a kid had these awesome stats, and I'll definitely look at them, but also I have to look and see, okay, what did you do against comparable composition? You know what I mean? Like, if you rush for 100 yards against a team that's not good, and then the next week you rush for 2 yards against a team that's really good, who are you really as a player? You know what I mean? I'm not dissing anybody, but it also, you have to look at, okay, what did you do against the best teams on your schedule? I think honestly that was a very fair thing I try to use in any sport. It's like, yes, I look at your season stats, and again, you always have about 10 players, okay, they're all their first team anyways, but you still want to look and see, okay, what did you do against the best of the best that you face? So, never a perfect system. There is some, human bias in it, but I will say I truly, I care about it to do it to the best of my ability. But once I do that, I no longer care about the chatter, the opinions and things like that, just because I know it's not personal. Like, I've written about literally at this point, hundreds of kids, in my 3 years in the region, 2.5, 3 years. So I know for a fact, no one can ever say it's like a personal gripe I have against a kid, because I truly, don't care enough to do that. So there you go.
I know, and that kind of segues us into the next item on our list here, doing well against good teams. And Courtney Blakely, Bishop Knoll, girls basketball standout. She got the opportunity to play against Crown Point, and the reason that was kind of significant is Courtney Blakely has been putting up crazy numbers against teams in her conference, and now she got a chance to play a great team, and she still put up her numbers. Certainly Crown Point is a much better team than Bishop Knoll, and that showed in the final score. But I know Chris Seibert from Crown Point, took time out to compliment Courtney Blakely about how good a player she was. And again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but she put up a typical Courtney Blakely stat line.
I believe she had about 29 that game. The team scored 47 overall. She's unstoppable as an individual. I haven't seen anybody slow her down. According to Max Prep, she's leading the state in scoring, which we can touch on a bit here in a sec. Mike, I don't know if you saw the numbers, but they were nuts. This week in particular.
She scored 99 in 2 games. So there you go.
Yeah, she scored 49 against Lighthouse in a 75-59 win, which caught my attention, of course. And I'm thinking, all right, well, that's incredible. And to remind people, these are 32-minute games. She had 49 points. And I'm thinking, wow, like, that's her career high, and part of me as a basketball guy is like, man, she was one short of 50, and 50 is kind of like that number in basketball where you're like, I dropped 50, like 50 is like the number, to try to get to, and I'm thinking, she's one shy of 50. Like, that's, I can imagine as a hooper, it probably might have stuck with her a little bit, like, I missed a shot here or there, I could have 50. And then 2 days later, on the 30th, and this was just yesterday against River Forest, she scored 50 even, and did it efficiently. I think she shot something like 16 to 23 from the field or something like that, hit 5 threes, and it's just nuts. She scored 50 points, and River Forest scored 50 as a team. So that kind of lets you know the level she's at, and also honestly, some of the drop off between talent levels or different programs, things like that. Programs are at different stages. I know River Forest is pretty young. They're trying to build, for the future. But like I said, 32-minute game, 50 points is unbelievable. And she has one more game this week against South Bend St. Joe. They're a really good 3A program. I'll be at that one on Saturday to check out, a bunch of region teams. I'm at the Mac Jokes Invitational, but she'll most likely eclipse 100 points in, a week. So that, to me, Mike, is nuts. And, I knew she was good, and we've all kind of known that throughout her high school career. Obviously, even with her last name, her mom being a great player. Courtney's definitely making a name for herself in her own right. And, again, to follow up 49 with 50 is pretty crazy. And I definitely feel like she's one of the better scorers the region has seen in girls basketball. And probably the best. I was talking to some guys and coaches and players around the region. She's probably the best girls basketball scorer the region has seen since Dana Evans, who's now at Louisville and is probably going to be in the running for a National Player of the Year and also probably going to be in that top 5 for the WNBA draft. So she's putting up numbers that you haven't seen since Dana, which was a few years back, and Dana was an All-American, for bring down as All-American. So great rarefied air to be in, and honestly, it's gonna be fun to see her. I haven't seen her this year yet, but I'm excited to see her. And if she scores more than 50 on Saturday, I might just just have to find a fire extinguisher to put her out a little bit. We'll see.
And I guess, unfortunately, we have to segue to the topic of the year, more basketball, but final COVID-19 basketball update for 2020. I don't think it's going to be the last COVID-19 update, but you want to take that away on where we're at today
so
with COVID-19.
I posted a quick one yesterday about Crown Point boys basketball. They're on hold due to COVID-19, and that marks the 19th boys basketball program out of 44 in the region that have had to stop, and miss a game or pause activities this season. And then on the girls' side, we've had 29 out of the 43 programs in Northwest Indiana that have had to stop and or miss a game or pause activities. And again, the reason why there's 44 boys basketball teams that we cover and 43 girls basketball teams is because Hammond Academy of Science and Technology doesn't have a varsity girls basketball team. So that's why it's one off, just for anybody, who's looking at this like, why isn't even? But yeah, it was kind of disappointing to write that because Crown Point was supposed to be in the Chesterton Classic, which is like a boys basketball shootout on Tuesday. They had to withdraw, which obviously made me think like, what's going on? So I reached out to their AD, and he confirmed what everyone assumes. But again, I never want to assume anything. I definitely want to at least look out and see or check in and see what's really going on. Can't go based off rumors and what mom and dad or the folks on Facebook and Twitter DM me every now and then. I appreciate the heads up from those of you who want to keep me aware, but I always got to verify with the source from the school. And honestly, there's a couple more schools I have to check in with, Mike. But with it being the holiday season, I'm not going to be blasting out emails on on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I figured I'll just get back on the COVID-19 horse. Probably Monday. I won't even say it's a horse, just the grind of trying to get those stories out. And one thing I do want to mention, the only boys or girls basketball program in the region that hasn't played a game yet is Hobart boys basketball. They have not played a game yet this season, and their next scheduled game is for Griffith on the January 5th. So I'll keep an eye on that one. I'm probably gonna end up trying to possibly cover it just because they had a unique fall with the football team making it really far. So they pushed back their season to give their football players who play basketball time to get their basketball practices in. And then they had some contact tracing things go on, and then they had to, I believe, withdraw from a holiday tournament. So it's just a lot going on with that program. So I think hopefully after a hard reset over this holiday break, allows them to be able to get back on the court Again, which is it's kind of crazy. Like their last game that they played was, back in March, if you think about it, at the onset of all of this. So it's kind of crazy that they have gone, this entire, we're months into the season at this point, and they haven't played a game. So that kind of like gives you a reality of what, some teams have had to deal with. I know there's others around the state that haven't played a game as well, but that's the only one in the region. And man, it's a grind, Mike. It's something we talk about constantly, even when we're not on the podcast. It's affected our lives in ways we never could imagine. And like you said, that's kind of been the theme of 2020. I mean, I will never forget, you told me to write a coronavirus story. And this was March 7th. I went out to the sectional championship. It was Couts and 21st Century at Couts. Covered that game. You told me, hey, beforehand, talk to their AD, get a few quotes about the coronavirus pandemic and, what they might do, to keep people safe and sanitize, things like that, just in case this thing becomes a big deal. And I was thinking, my editor's, asking for this useless story. Like he's being not even useless. I was just thinking, man, like he's really being like just over, I want to say over. Gosh, I was just thinking, wow, he's really urgent about this. And obviously I can tell you were serious about it. And obviously I'm going to do, what I'm told. And I ended up, I remember I was sitting at my grandma's house, literally I was sitting at my grandma's house after church on March 8th, writing like this little coronavirus brief. And I was thinking, all right, finally got that done. I can enjoy my weekend with my grandma and got that out the way. And then, this will never really affect anything. And, lo and behold, that was the start of everything. I mean, everything kind of caved when the NBA stopped on March 11th. I think that kind of woke the entire country up. And then obviously you can see where we are now. So, yeah, Mike, I definitely remember. I'll always remember my first coronavirus story that you assigned me. And it's surreal to look back at how casual I was about it and then how vigilant I am now. And I'm sure you can feel the same way about just the safety precautions we take to really ensure that we stay healthy and we stay as safe as possible.
Well, Rudy Gobert, right?
Yeah.
Our poster guy for COVID awareness. I think we all remember that. And I just saw this video pop back into my timeline again, where he did the post-game press conference.
Yeah.
And he grabbed everybody's phone, and was making light of it. And then who is the first person who tests positive for COVID in the sports world, and what gets shut down first? The NBA. So, I don't know. It's none of us knew what it was going to be like when it happened, and none of us expected this because none of us were around for the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 and 1919. Obviously, 100 plus years ago. It's been a remarkable year, and it kind of takes us to our final topic, which is the stories of the year. And two of the big stories were, first of all, the boys' basketball playoffs being shut down after being first postponed and then canceled, and then the entire spring season being wiped out. And I guess kind of the corollary to that was that we played through the fall and the winter with all of the stops, starts, pauses, cancellations, resumptions that we've been talking about today, and for the last however many months we've been doing the podcast. So, and we're not done yet. I think that's probably everybody's, and I've been one of the people saying good riddance to 2020. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But the reality is that the vaccines are here, the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine, and our first responders are getting them, every day, and also other at-risk folks, including long-term care residents. And at some point, a turn's going to come up, and I speak for myself, and I think I speak for you. When our turn does come up, I will be gladly rolling up my sleeve for that vaccine, because I believe in vaccines. And this is something I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because again, I'm a couple of generations older than you. When I was a kid, nobody thought anything about vaccines, and this will probably get a little chatter going, but anti-vaxxers didn't exist when I was a kid. I got vaccinated for everything that the doctor told my parents that I needed to be vaccinated for, and pinched a little bit. I probably cried a little bit when I was really a kid, like most little kids would. But it's something that we did. And, thanks to that, I had a pretty healthy childhood. And again, it's like the vaccine is important. It's one of our best tools to fight this and get out of this and get back to where we want to be, which is being able to do all the things that we used to do up until March. We want to go back to a packed gymnasium, where you're sitting elbow to elbow with fans and, other media members, where you can't hear yourself, and it's a crazy atmosphere. We want to do all those things. We want to go to movies. We want to go eat in a crowded restaurant, go on down the list. We want to do all those things. You want to go, sit and give your grandma a hug, after church on Sunday, and all of these things that we can't do now. So, folks, please, and we'll talk a little bit more about the stories of the year, but and we say this for every podcast, and we mean it: mask up, social distance, be careful, please, because we want you around, and we appreciate all you've done to support us in the local media, and we want you to keep doing that. So anyway, with that PSA out of the way, we can move on to the stories of the year. It was the year of those two things. I don't know. We need to say an awful lot more about the cancellations, because we've been talking about that so much. But it was also a year of great achievements for athletes from around the region. We had some state champs, some other teams and athletes who made it to state finals. We had, on the broader scene, we had athletes going to the biggest stages in baseball, among other sports. So, take it away.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy year, one that you certainly won't forget. And we did a joint, collective list of some of the top moments and top stories of the year. You all can probably guess what number one and number two are, but sprinkled throughout, we had Chesterton win a state championship in boys soccer, which was in historic fashion. I covered that game, my only boys soccer game of the year, and it was certainly one I'll never forget, just because it got out of hand in favor of Chesterton pretty quick, and again, pretty unbelievably. Like, I was just sitting there like, this has turned into not only a we won a state championship story, but where do you rank them in history as far as how they won story. So I was looking up all types of data to see, margin of victory, how many goals were scored in the first half of a game and things like that. And the IHSA was tweeting out, records basically every time Chesterton scored at one point. So that was a great game. We had Gary native and West Side alum Dana Evans be named an All-American. We had Mike Brasso in the World Series, another region guy. Karina James from Lowell winning the state championship, which marked their second state championship individual, that is, from that school. Gabe Sanchez won last year on the boys' side. And just, those are the types of things that we were still able to write about in this year. And one thing I do want to touch on for all of you out there who are listening is that, before we had a chance to really write about, all those things that we talked about in that list in particular, which were, live sports events, there was a time where there were no live sports. And, back when Mike was on the more so on the sports desk and really leading the charge for us, He was, finding new unique ways for us to, continue to put out daily content every single day in a sports section when no sports were being played. And it wasn't, a bunch of AP grabs. Like, we were doing local copy. I'm proud to say that we were able to put out local copy every day throughout the entire pandemic. And then, obviously we're still going through it, but I should say, just to, clarify, throughout that whole lockdown period where really nothing was going on in the sports world, we had local copy every single day. And, there were conversations I had with Mike where we were brainstorming and pulling teeth to try to figure out unique stories to write and ways to find more story ideas in different schools to write about. But I think overall with, I think we started off with like our top 10 games and, of the past sports season, just to get us rolling. And then we also had, the as tolds with a lot of the spring athletes who lost their season and what they were doing in the meantime to stay ready or to, prepare for college or prepare for their upcoming, season and things like that. And also, we did the we did these senior spotlight pieces, which range from, cross country to baseball to all types of things. And I'm really proud of that, Mike. And I got to give you props, man. Like, there were some days where I'm like, I have no idea how we're going to get anything done. But we managed, and we made it through the dog days of that. That was a grind, man. Like, I remember being on the road so much, which I guess I'm back to doing now. But there was a time where, like, usually I'm in my car all the time. Like, I just cracked 70,000 miles this week, and I've only had my car for, 2.5 years. So, there was a time there where I hadn't driven, I could have like a tank of gas for like 2 weeks. Like, that's how crazy it got. And, really just give you an insight into my life. I'm at the gas station like every 2 or 3 days. So we made it through, Mike.
Yeah, we had to certainly brainstorm, but we did we did 3 different series, I think, right? We did the My Favorite Games. Yep. We did Extended Spring Break, which was the spring athletes talking about what they did instead of playing. And we also caught up with a bunch of other athletes, college.
Yep.
And that's, one of the things about the region is there's a lot of stories out here, and sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it feels like there's too many stories, honestly, because we want to get to all of them. Believe me, but we have James is one person, and we do have other writers, obviously. Some correspondents who help us out, and Aaron Ferguson, who's the assistant sports editor now, is running the sports department, and myself, I try to write a column every week. So we all try to pitch in, but that was one of the things that I guess that we were able to do there. I'm not going to say it was a silver lining or anything like that, because we wouldn't want to go through it again, but it forced us to think about what other stories are out there, and we came up with some, I think, pretty good ones. And that is something we are proud of, for sure, that we were able to have a local sports story in the paper every day since this began, and including through the extreme lockdown when nothing was going on. And we gradually came out of that, obviously, and had different sports and stuff going on. But it's been a remarkable year, I guess I would say, because again, through all of it, we had some great achievements. Kids, teams excelling through all of the difficult times, and and again, we've talked about occasionally on the Illinois side. We do cover a few schools on the Illinois side, and there have been no sports at TF South and TF North and Cal City and Lansing since March. They did not take part in any fall sports on the Illinois side. There were only low-risk sports played, and there have been no sports at all. Winter sports played in Illinois on the Illinois high school into the spring season for all those kids who didn't get a chance to play last year. And Drain did not get a chance to defend its baseball state championship. Washington Township baseball did not get a chance to get back to state because both of them made it to Indy in 2019. And we'll see how all that goes. And that's about all I have. So thank you again for listening. Thank you again for reading. Thank you again for liking our tweets, retweeting our tweets. I won't thank everybody for every comment. I'm going to be honest. So, but we do appreciate constructive feedback, and we certainly take that to heart. For the non-constructive feedback, and I guess we probably should mention too, this is one of the things that we also did, apart from the top 10 stories, is all of us across the paper, not just in sports, also talked about our favorite stories of the year. Mm-hmm. And you will see those rolling out. A lot of them have rolled out. Some of them are still to be rolled out. This is a year when, and as we've talked about too, this is a year when America confronted a lot of issues that have been overlooked for a long time. And it's when sports and current events kind of intersected. As we talked about, not just the pandemic, but also America's reckoning with racial inequality, highlighted in particular by the deaths of a number of black people who were killed this year. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and the list sadly continues to grow, and it is something that the sports world has woke up to and is addressing, using the platform that it has to advocate for change in our society, which is needed, necessary, and overdue, in my opinion. And I know that you have written powerfully about this. I've mentioned this before, some of your conversations with various players and coaches in the region have really helped to move forward the conversation that we are having here and throughout the country. And that, I think, is another very big story. And I know that we know that there are readers who don't like us talking about that. And honestly, as you have said, we don't care because it's too important not to talk about it. So that's what I would say about that. And if you have anything, you want to get out there?
I guess all I'll say is, as my grandma would say, if the Lord is willing, let's all stay safe and, work, I guess, personally, as I always try to do, be a better person every day. And hopefully, 2021 is a little kinder to all of us around the world. And, like you said, I'll be gladly rolling up my sleeve when it's vaccine time. And I might even try to do a cartwheel on the way out. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Might have to put it on, social media and embarrass myself. But, hey, I mean, I'd rather do that than, kind of keep doing what we're doing and just living the way we're living. I don't think, life's supposed to be like this. It's like this for now. And obviously the measures we take, we have to take them serious. And, I'm just looking forward to a lot of return to normalcy things in 2021. And then you can probably expect a column the first time I'm able to hug my grandma again. So just, I guess, a little teaser for, 6 to 8 to however many months it is from now. Stay tuned on that front, and you all stay safe. Have a happy new year, and we'll see you in 2021.